Do you ever have one of those days when your makeup just doesn't work out? For the first time in a very long time, I did my whole makeup and had to take it all off and do it again. My eyebrows are just being bitches. The eyeshadow is being patchy. Over here is patchy. I've spent so long trying to blend it and I'm giving up. Hello everyone, welcome back to Cosmetic Chaos. Today we're going to discuss the palette purchase path. So I've had lots of people ask me about what helps me decide what palettes to buy, what drives me to buy certain ones, which ones are right for them, what they should buy if they're only buying one, etc, etc. So I thought this is something that would be good to discuss on my channel because it's a question I probably get the most. So nobody can actually tell you what palette you should purchase. You need to know yourself. You need to know the kind of makeup you want to wear. You need to consider your expertise in makeup. You need to consider how much time and effort you want to consume in applying makeup, specifically eyeshadow. It is one of the things that takes the longer amount of time to do. You need to consider the type of artistry you're going to be into. Are you going to be sitting and practicing cut creases? Is this for work? Is this for school? Is this for a specific event? Are you somebody that goes to a lot of events? Something else to consider is the finishes that you like. Are you more into looks that you see that are matte? When you're cruising on Pinterest, the stuff that you're saving, is it a lot of colorful makeup? Is it a lot of shimmers? Is it a lot of satins, glitters? Spend some time looking on YouTube and think about the type of makeup that you're drawn to, and keep in mind also that you can be drawn to a makeup and not necessarily like that on you. For example, I like a lot of cut crease type and really dramatic like peacock coloring, but I don't actually want to take the time to do that for myself every day, so that may not necessarily be where I go to reach for a palette. Consider your undertones and shades you like to wear. Consider the type of clothing that you like to wear. If you're the kind of girl that's sitting in sweats most of the time and all you want is like a light wash of color, that's something to take into consideration. If you're somebody that knows that like oranges and burnt reds and a lot of really warm tones look good on you, then that's kind of where you should be leaning with your makeup. It doesn't necessarily have to match. People will typically buy clothing in shades and styles and undertones and tones that suit them, that they like, that they feel comfortable in. So I always recommend that you kind of stick within those same families because you're more likely to get your money's worth out of the products that you're buying and really use the products that you're buying. Another main thing to consider is what your budget is, where you want to be purchasing from. Are you looking at buying from Sephora or Ulta or a Walmart type store or a indie brand? You really need to consider how much money you want to invest in that palette purchase, whether it is your one and only palette or something that you're adding to a collection. I actually did a poll on my channel and I wanted to quickly discuss the top reasons and the top things that people are looking for in purchasing a palette. So these are things that you could also be considering yourself if you haven't really thought about this before. The first thing that came under consideration when somebody's buying a palette is color story. So this kind of falls under the, are you buying something that you are comfortable with? Are you buying shades that you know that you already like? Are you a person who really loves to wear cool tones and cool tones look the best for you, but you're really drawn to modern renaissance in a makeup palette? That's okay, you can totally do that, but it's something you need to consider. Especially if this is something you're adding to your collection. Is this a palette that you have 100 times over? Have you actually sat and looked at what you already own and thought, can I make anything out of this? If you are going to be purchasing your one and only eyeshadow palette and you're considering color story, is there enough shades in that palette to actually get you through the day-to-day? Do you have enough mattes? Do you have enough shimmers? Are they in the right shades? Is this a palette that is all, let's say, bright peacocky colors, but you want to wear this every day for work, but you happen to like the palette? Perhaps that's not the color story for you for what you're looking for in your purchase. The second item that was the most popular to consider was actually the price. So again, I will revert back to my comment about budgeting. Is this the one and only palette that you want to purchase? Do you want to stick with only shopping at Sephora, only shopping at Ulta, only shopping at the drugstore? Is this something you can afford at some point to repurchase? Is this something that once you buy it and you have to buy something to complement it, is that something you can afford? Affordability is very personal. Something that I can afford and is cheap to me may not be for you, and vice versa. I know lots of stuff that come out and people are like, oh, it's a great value, it's super cheap, but to me I'm like, what? That's way too expensive. It's very personal, so you have to set yourself a budget and stick to it. Number 3 that was the most highly considered was actually the emotional effect it had on you. So when you look at it, does it make you happy? Does it spark joy? Does it make you feel creative? Or does it make you feel kind of like, or overwhelmed, or you're not really sure what you want to do with it and you only really stick to 3 of, say, 20 shades? A lot of this comes from Marie Kondo becoming more popular over the last few months. She's released a tidying up show on Netflix, and part of her whole idea of keeping your life decluttered and keeping your house tidy is to make sure that everything that you have sparks joy. So if you pick up that palette, does it make you feel good? When you pick up that palette, does it make you want to use it and sit down and play? Does it make you frustrated? You need to consider how that feels. Another thing I tied under this category of emotional effect was if you have seen it a few times, either on YouTube or wherever else you may have seen it in the store, if you then consider it multiple times over and it's something that keeps popping into your head, even if you have other items similar, is it something that after a week or two you are still considering? You want to make sure that when you bring something like that into your collection, and because these items can be so expensive, that they are going to be something that make you happy and don't make you feel overwhelmed or regrettable. Number 4 is swatches and quality. I was actually surprised to see this so much lower on the list than everything else. There is about 10 items on here. However, you would think that the quality and the swatching would actually come above Color Story, Emotional Effect, and price, but they did not. This one, to me, is you want to make sure you are finding looks that you can complete. So you want to look at YouTube, you want to look on Pinterest, you want to look on Google Images. You want to make sure that anything that you can create is actually available to you. There are things that you are comfortable being able to do and you are willing to take the time to learn them if you are a beginner. Finger swatches don't necessarily mean it is a good or bad palette. I prefer application. Swatches on your hand do tell certain things, and I absolutely agree with Jen Loves Reviews. I will link her video down below of why she finds finger swatches important, but you just want to make sure it is going to apply the way you want it to, and that it's not going to be too dusty for you, have too much fallout, or whatever else you think might bother you, especially if you are a beginner. Number 5 was definitely reviews, so you want to take that in consideration with your swatches and your quality as well. Make sure that the reviews are out there. If you're comfortable being the first one to review it and you're comfortable returning products, that's okay. This one doesn't have to actually impact your purchase path at all. A lot of people go in blindly, and that's all right. Me personally, I prefer not to watch reviews before I buy something because I feel like sometimes it can actually switch my opinion of a product that I may have otherwise have liked, or it can switch something that I don't like into something that I feel like I should because everyone else does. The 6th thing to consider is the packaging style and size. A lot of people, when you watch declutters, you will find they are decluttering palettes that are a lot bigger or have bulkier packaging because they don't have a place to put them. So consider where you are going to be storing your makeup and what type of storage that you have and what is most important to you in that sense. Do you want to have that palette sitting out somewhere? Do you want to have it tucked away in a drawer? If it is tucked away in a drawer, are you going to be able to easily access it? Something else in the packaging style is, does it have enough shades for you in the package? Are you buying a palette with 16 shades that don't all work together? Are you buying a palette with 4 shades that you are going to get bored of very quickly? It is nice to have something that's kind of in the middle. I personally prefer the Pro palettes. They are about, I believe I want to say 14 to 16 shades. I think that is a good range. I don't mind large packaging. I have a whole room for my makeup, so I have places to put these things, but I completely understand why people don't like the large palettes, specifically like the larger Morphe palettes. Another one that comes to my mind with not the most functional packaging is the Alice in Wonderland by Urban Decay, where you actually have to pull it out of the bottom. A lot of that is collector item stuff, and I think it's beautiful, but not necessarily the most logical when coming to storage. Item number 7 that was highly voted for was the brand's behavior. Things to consider in brand behavior is how they are treating their clients. I would look at their customer service reviews, their general product reviews, and how they are received on social media. There are lots of brands that have been canceled this year and the previous years due to behavior, shade ranges, customer service complaints, the way that illegal matters have been handled. So if that's something that really matters to you, and it does matter to a lot of consumers, I would watch brand behavior. Not that I want to open up any cans of worms, but Jeffree Star has had brand behavior issues, Kat Von D, Tarte, Lime Crime, Z palette. These are all just ones off the top of my head that have had brand behavior issues and have damaged their companies because of it. A lot of these things can also encounter with this is like cruelty free. Do you care about cruelty free or not? Is that something that matters to you? You have to research what companies are cruelty free, and just because something necessarily says it on their packaging, you always want to check the cruelty free sites, which I can link down below. We are now coming to the bottom of the list on things that really matter to people. The third last is uniqueness or layout of the palette. So I like to think of this in, are you one of those people that sees a palette and it needs to be in a certain order? It needs to be certain shapes of pans. Do you prefer rectangle pans, square pans, round pans? Do you prefer a layout that is all set out in a line? Do you prefer lengthwise? There's a lot of palettes that have changed the game with that, like the Urban Decay Kaleidoscope palette was kind of all over the place. There was a Dose of Colors palette that had layout all over the place. There is also a line from Too Faced that has launched recently. People are not receiving it well because the pans are not in line and they are all over the place. So consider that in your purchase decision as well. Is this something you can look at and know what you want to do with the colors and know what you want to do with, like, does the shape throw you off? A lot of people are really thrown off when things are not in a straight line. This one I actually think should be a little bit higher on the list. This is the allergens and ingredients. I can't speak scientifically to ingredients, but I do know a lot of people are very allergic to some things in eyeshadows. There is staining issues with some people if your skin is a little bit more sensitive. So if you are new to the makeup industry or you're finding you're having some struggles with staining on your eyelids, look into ingredients and look into the actual allergens that could be in your eyeshadow. I had a friend of mine who was having a really hard time with her skin and her eyes, and her face was always itchy. And I made a comment saying, have you looked at the ingredients to see if there's like carmine, for example, in there, and if that's something that bothers your skin? A lot of red or pink pigments can really bother a lot of people. And she actually did that research, and that was exactly what was bothering her. She moved out all of her cosmetics that had that issue, or that ingredient, sorry, and the issue was resolved. And last but not least is the variety of shades. And I did kind of touch on this at the beginning of the video. Are the shades going to work for you? Do you have enough mattes in there? Is there a transition shade? Is there a highlight shade? Do you have nice lid shades? Do they all look the same? Do you, I would say the Lorac Pro 3 was a bad one for this, where the shades were all so similar. For a lot of people, it was difficult to be inspired by the palette. So make sure you stay away from that. If you have anything that I have missed, please feel free to have a discussion down below. I think palette purchases are so heavily abused these days, and I am totally one to do the same. Nobody's really considering what they're buying or shopping their stash before they are purchasing. For beginners, it's a little bit different, so I think you should consider all the things that I did list here before you make a purchase. But it is so personal, so when you are asking other people to make the recommendation for you, a lot of what may work for me may not work for you, so I hope this has given you something to consider in your purchases in the future. Thank you so much, guys. Again, like I said, if you have anything you'd like to add to this list, please leave it in the comments. I'm ready to hear it. I'm trying to make smarter decisions myself, as many people are this year, so hopefully it's helpful to those of you that are in the comments and those of you watching this video. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.